One thing we're working on right now is a benchmark, which is basically we're tracking for 140 mental health clients that have given us permission to. We're tracking what the average CPLs are, what the average ranges are. And I do have all that data. Will be released next week. But what we have seen as a trend is that the clients that are doing the other thirds, right? So they are doing the referrals, local outreach, and they are doing organic, their CPLs, their paid ads actually perform better. So that shouldn't be a surprise, really. I mean, for us in marketing, we know that everything works together.
All right, welcome to The Boost, conversations with people promoting mental health. And I feel like this is an extra special one. I've enjoyed every conversation I've had on The Boost, but I'm here with Jennifer Christensen, who is the CMO and co-founder of Beacon Media and Marketing. And we are here to talk about the 2024 State of Mental Health Marketing Report that we partnered on. And Jennifer, it's lovely to see you today. How are you?
I'm doing great. And yeah, thank you for the invite. Great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great to talk about this report. It's really robust. I think it's like 17, 18 pages of research. So I thought we'd just start with just handing it to you to talk a little bit about who you interviewed, how you put it together. I think this is the first year that you put it together. I hope it's the first of many because as I read through it, I just kept finding point after point and insight after insight. And so, talk about how you kind of structured the research and pulled it together.
Yeah, absolutely. So the inspiration from it actually was looking through WordStream, looking through other documents online, doing our own research and trying to make sure we really understood this market. I mean, this is our focus market is mental health marketing. And I kept finding some information in different places, but nothing comprehensive. And there was one, to give absolute credit, Dreamscape had done one for behavioral health, but it was a smaller subset. And I didn't feel like it was quite identifying our client base and the people that we were talking to daily, which was, basically mental health clinics that either had multiple group practices, right? So like 3, 5, 10 therapists or multi-location practices. That's really the core of our business. And so that was the inspiration. It's just we need to have data. We need to know, are we doing a good job? What are the main pain points? How can we do better? How can we share this data so that it's good information for everybody? So that was what we started with. So I reached out to a few people. You were one of them, immediately of who has the best access that we're going to get the most accurate data. So I'm really glad we partnered on this. As I was telling you before we started, about 40% of our respondents came through, either the mental health marketing emails that you put out or LinkedIn. We also did a very targeted LinkedIn ad campaign, which got about 30% of the respondents. And then we used our own email list and our own connections, and then I did do specific reach outs to about 20 people. Actually, none of them were our clients because our clients were already in our email list, but people that I knew that were in this like multi-location practice, right? So based on the information that we got, we know there's a couple solo practitioners in there and a couple that were very large, large scale clients, but almost everybody, I'd say a good 90-95% fit in that middle group. And that was so really happy that we got that many respondents from that group.
Yeah, I was too. It got a critical mass. I was delighted to hear our email list and social following on the mental health marketing side contributed to that, but you really did get a robust number of respondents.
We
And
did.
I think, a lot jumped out to me. And what I would love to do is maybe talk about some of those high points that I saw, and feel free to chime in with your own because you really dug deep into it. And I know Bob Hutchins had a role
Yes.
in a co-authoring role, and he's such a great kind of analyst and strategist that can go into
Yeah.
the work of taking the numbers and the data and pulling insights. So yeah, kudos to him too, and in addition to the Beacon team. But the thing that jumped out first to me was the referrals. Yes, sure, the referrals are driving a lot of the ROI that these clinics and practices are experiencing, but social media is right on the heels of that. So if you could maybe talk a little bit about that finding.
Yeah, we were surprised by that. We know that referral is the basis of this market. There's no question. And our theory as Beacon, what we've been telling people for years, because this was more anecdotal on what we saw in the evidence, is that our theory and our belief is that your practice should be 30, 30, 30. You know, that those three thirds. So a third referral, so that's your local outreach, a third paid social and Google, and a third organic reach. And that can be multiple things. That could be podcasts, that could be your social channels, that could be blogging, all of that, right? So that's kind of how we've always looked at it holistically. I was really surprised. I expected referrals to be higher. So referrals was 33, so kind of right in that theory range that we've talked about. But like you said, social media advertising, which this is the paid portion of ads, was right there. I think it was close to 30, like 28% or something. And what I was really surprised about that number was just how many people have openly adopted it. You know, like, so it's not like, oh, we're thinking about doing this, or maybe we need to run some ads. It's like no, we're running ads and we're getting success from it. You know, it's contributing to that traffic. I will add a piece to that statistic, which is anecdotal. One thing we're working on right now is a benchmark, which is basically we're tracking for 140 mental health clients that have given us permission to. We're tracking what the average CPLs are, what the average ranges are. And I do have all that data. Will be released next week before this comes out. But what we have seen as a trend is that the clients that are doing the other thirds, right? So they are doing the referrals, local outreach, and they are doing organic, their CPLs, their paid ads actually perform better. So that shouldn't be a surprise, really. I mean, for us in marketing, we know that everything works together. But, you know, if we can give real statistical numbers to that, I think that will help people understand, okay, well, why should I even be posting on Facebook, or why should I, you know, make this post on LinkedIn when they don't see an immediate ROI from it? So
Mm-hmm.
that's just an extra little nugget that we're working on. I feel like the more data we can give in the industry, it's that concept of, you know, it's going to raise all the boats, right? We all need good information to make decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see those three going hand in hand for sure. I mean, it's a relational business, and referrals, being sort of protecting home court and protecting the relationships, those word of mouth, one-to-one, engagements that lead you to some new client or some referral. And then the paid game is sort of a short term or more short term, sort of performance driven. You got to be in market, you got to be competing. Some of that is table stakes. And then you have the long form sort of SEO, long game play with podcasts and
Right,
long form articles and things like that. So you're kind of covering the trifecta of where leads may come in from.
right, right. But
Okay.
it is encouraging to me that percentage is saying, you know, paid performance is working for them.
I can't wait to see if and how this changes over the years if you continue with it. The
Oh
how
yeah.
the trends are kind of shifting these numbers, perhaps.
I'm pretty excited to see. I mean, I guess we can just jump ahead, right? I'm pretty excited to see what the amount of people that were interested in new, you know, tactics, new avenues. I was like, yes, you know, I love trying new things and seeing what's going to take off. You know, with the advent of AI and everything that's coming in with that, there's so much shifting right now, and we're focused much more heavily on brand. It doesn't mean we're going away from paid ads, but we're putting much stronger emphasis on building the brand itself than we are just, you know, getting in those bottom of funnel clicks. So when people say they're more interested possibly in video, or, you know, looking at really advertising on YouTube, or, you know, those types of things, that makes me really happy.
Yeah, that was surprising to me too, and not surprised to hear you're focusing on brand and sort of the starting at the beginning, to the top down sort of approach to company building. And I feel like, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, but like clinics and practice owners, we know not always the most sophisticated marketers, and sometimes when you're getting into marketing yourself, you kind of start with maybe what's comfortable or with like where you're familiar, and that could be social media, just because we're all on social. But I was really surprised too. I was scroll down to this report because the percentages were high. So it's almost 62% are interested in short form video in 24 as a
Right.
new trend or new tactic. 50% podcasts, more than 68% AI marketing tools, and then 68% on the dot new platforms like TikTok and maybe other platforms like that.
Yeah, I am looking at it too. Yeah, again, I was really surprised by those numbers. I will say, as somebody who's on the ground, day in and day out, I'm not the person at the front usually at Beacon who's talking to our clients, but I definitely am the one once they sign on that we talk about what we're doing for marketing. And it's like everyone's excited about video until they think about being on it themselves, and then they're not so excited anymore. And I am just really, I'm hoping we get past that on some level. We're doing everything we can figure out to help people get comfortable in the platforms. And I know how uncomfortable I was at first. I did not want to, I just don't look at myself. That really helps, right? But it's just how people connect and communicate. So I think we're at the point where the majority of people know that they prefer video and they prefer that interaction, so they know it's important. I don't know that we've quite gotten over the hump yet of, okay, I'm actually willing to step in and do that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we do have a couple clients doing podcasts, a couple mental health clients doing podcasts, and Steve, they are just doing incredible. So, I mean,
That's
the
so
ones that have
great.
really jumped into it, like they have developed, like speaking engagements and followings and personal brand, and they have a specific niche, so it really works for them. I'm not saying that's for everybody, but it is very effective.
Mm-hmm. I mean, here we are on, I can say I'm eating some of this dog food and trying to, help
That's right.
people adopt short form marketing and podcasting. And it does take a little bit of time. I had some imposter syndrome. I had some,
Right.
some embarrassment about my background, which is not nearly as cool as yours. I will say yours is very, very on point and your lighting is better. Yeah, don't let that stop you.
No,
It's the value is in the content, and then there's a halo effect for people. So you do the podcast and then adopt an AI tool that will chop those up into 30 to 60-second short form videos. So then all of a sudden, and then post it on TikTok, and then all of a sudden you're doing all four of the things that most people are kind of thinking about dipping their toe into. They really are making it easier
they are.
to find the most interesting parts of a podcast. It'll say this is 80% likely to be more viral than other things. So, like, wow, that's incredible. It does a lot of the work for you.
Yeah, are you using Opus Clip? Should we give a shout out to what we're using?
I don't I tried Opus Clip, which I like a lot. I use something called Video
Oh,
dot
I've heard of that one.
AI.
Yeah,
Yeah, I liked their they gave me more storage, I think, than Opus. But we record on Riverside.fm, and then I throw it into Descript, which gives me an
yeah,
AI transcription. But then Riverside now has added features where they do the short form video for you. Is that what the system you're running on
it is.
podcasts?
It is. We're doing Riverside. We are going to be moving to an in-person model when we do in-person ones, but Riverside's great. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you need to do in person. I think the barrier to video and podcasting, all of that, is just the fear and the not knowing. And when you really realize there's these tools, like you said, that are just great, it takes a lot of that out of it.
Yeah,
You know, yeah, it really does. So, but yeah, I look back at my first ones and I'm like, that's terrible, but I'm so glad I started.
yeah,
Yeah.
me too. Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. I mean, for all the therapists and clinicians out there, we all know the cave you fear holds the treasure you seek. So if that
There you go.
if that fear, and I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to pretend that that's good advice for everybody, but that's what it was for me. And actually, today at lunch, I was having tacos with a friend of mine, and we start talking about why did I do this podcast? Like, what is the super goal for this? And for me, it was we would do this wonderful conference in the fall, and then we would go dead quiet for like
Right.
11 months. And so I thought, well, okay, we need to do some email marketing what are we going to say? And then it was like, I don't have to say everything. Jennifer can say all these amazing insights. And there's hundreds of people that I have met through this experience that absolutely fill our content marketing strategy because they're the experts. So we're sort of just a pipeline, from experts to other experts. But yeah, you don't even have to say everything. You can also highlight and feature other people has been one strategy for us, so that it's not so much about me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's my preferred form of marketing anyway, is collaboration. And especially as things get more complicated, which you'll see even in the report, my biggest takeaway actually, let's see if I go back to that one. I think it was like 45%. Yeah. So speaking of what we're just talking about, 45% of those surveys said their greatest challenge in marketing is lack of clarity on what marketing works best. I mean, that is a huge number.
Talk
And
about that more. I didn't sit enough with that one. 45%, their biggest challenge is clarity.
yeah, so it wasn't competitors, it wasn't budget, which that's what you would expect, right? And those were
Yeah.
in there. Those were like in the 20s, 10. So those had some significant numbers, but the majority, their biggest frustration or their biggest challenge that they perceived was that they just don't know. They don't know what's working. And then when I look at the stat of 50% of them also, I mean, I'm wondering if it's the same 50%, but 50% of them also said they never do digital audits.
Okay, now
So
that was a shocking point. I mean, I was going
yeah,
to get to that too, and it's a perfect dovetail, but yeah, 51% said to the question, how frequently does your company conduct digital marketing audits? They said never.
right. I know. And so like, is it the same people? Like, we don't know that. And these are some of the things that we've done the first survey. We're going to try to be much more intentional and thoughtful. This is just our first iteration, right? We want this to be so much more robust next time. And thank you so much to everybody who filled it out, because it gives us a good foundation and starting point. But I'm like, are they the same people? Because in marketing, I believe very strongly, if you don't measure it, you can't improve it. You don't know what's happening. And even though attribution is getting so much harder, much more difficult, there are definitely things that you can measure. So even if we can't in the future look to specifically that Google ad or that Facebook ad, we can definitely track over time, what campaigns are driving revenue, even just on your bottom line.
So let's talk about that. Maybe this is another fear factor of nobody likes to be audited. A lot of
Yeah.
people are afraid of digital things, digital marketing. So
Yeah.
let's talk to like the 101 clinician, or maybe the none of the above here, like the 51, 52% here. Where do you start with a digital marketing audit, and what's the upside to get them over that fear or the ignorance of what it does?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I think in the audit process, it's probably something like a diagnosis with a doctor. It's asking the right questions, right? Like what actually matters, what doesn't matter. So, from an end result, the first thing you want to do in a digital marketing audit is you want to look at exactly how many leads to conversions you had internally. So, the first thing you're looking at is how many phone calls came in, how many emails came in, that stuff you have to do on your side. Because there's usually a point for the clinicians, depending on what their setup is. Like, let's say they have determined through their emails and through their calls that they got 40 people that reached out to them, potential new clients. And let's say their internal structure is they don't get back to them for 2 to 3 days. They probably only got, 5 to 6 of those people actually became clients, because that's an audit piece on their side. So I know I'm starting there, but I mean, that's like, you almost have to start backwards. So
Yeah.
start there, like, where are we at? What are we doing? Lead to conversion can be confusing, but it's really pretty simple. You just have to look at the numbers.
Hmm.
So that's your first question, is, what's happening once that information's coming to us. Then if you're working with an agency, your top things that you're looking at are generally a CPL, so cost per lead. And that's going to be in either your YouTube ads, your Meta ads, your Google ads. You'll have different ones for different sections. And that is how much you're paying for every person that actually fills out a form or calls you. So there's a lot of other metrics that go in there as far as like how many people click on your ads and all of those things. But your most important thing is really the lead. And then we've implemented for all of our clients Rail. There's many, many different programs like that. But what CallRail does is it allows us to track what's actually a good qualified lead. So not just, let's say your CPL is really low relatively, depending on the benchmark. Let's say it's $25 or something, and that would be a low CPL for the mental health industry benchmark. But all the leads you're getting are only use insurance and you want private pay.
Mhm.
So that's the type of stuff you're auditing. You're not just looking at reports and numbers and how much your traffic went up on your website and how many people are clicking on your stuff. All that stuff matters, but those are what I call leading indicators. Those are things that are 3 to 6 months out and how they affect your leads. So I would say start auditing the most important things and then move backwards.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the real business drivers. I mean, I can think of it from, my own perspective. It's like, okay, we're looking to sell tickets to our conference. We're looking for sponsorships, people to
Right.
support that side of things. It's like you work from the goal and the end backward to, okay, well, let's make sure that one, the leads that are calling in get responded to in a timely manner in a way that matches up with our capacity, or our
Right.
best and highest use for our clinicians in this case, or our therapists. So yeah, it's not just about some of the metrics on, how many Facebook followers that you have or things like that. It's actually
Well, and
starting with the business goals.
those things are great. I just prefer it to go
Yeah.
that direction because when you look at the end goal, you'll usually find almost every single time you'll find there's stuff in there that can be fixed. And that makes a huge difference on your outcome as far as actual conversions and revenue. And then when you work backwards, then you start thinking of a larger mindset of just like you said, there's our end goal. Now, what do I need to be doing 6 months before to get there? Or in your case, right? Like, here's my 6 month plan. I just find it easier to go backwards to forwards. And
Yeah.
then it makes more
Backwards and
sense. And
forwards.
then you're not obsessing over maybe something that really isn't going to make a business decision or driver.
It's stuff like this that gets me really excited when marketing agencies show up to my conference and sponsor the conference. Beacon is a big gold sponsor this year. We're very appreciative of that. You hung with us in the virtual years, and you've grown with us, or we've grown with you more likely. But you had an insight in there. It was kind of almost a coin toss, like a little more than 50% of companies who responded are doing this all in-house. And I can understand that for a lot of different scenarios. One
Sure.
is you've gotten so big that you have an in-house team and you can hire the specialists in a multitude of roles that it takes to cover branding and PR and digital marketing and social media marketing and all the things kind of that it takes. But I've lived agency life and I've seen plenty of agencies transform a business, which is their client, because you can tap into a team of people who have that expertise basically fractionally as a whole that's greater than the sum of its parts.
Right.
That's one of the beauties of marketing firms in my mind. And it was like 46%. You'll have to look at the report if you're listening to this. Just 46% or so were doing a blend of in-house and
Right.
agency, which speaks to, let's not be so territorial. I see that sometimes with in-house people. They think, well, we're bringing in a marketing firm, it's going to eliminate my role or somebody's role. It's like, well, maybe not, but more than likely it's going to help the organization succeed in a way that you couldn't do on your own necessarily if you're needing that help and you can't source it all internally. And then just like 4% were agency only, right?
Right. Right. Yeah, and I don't know that I would be comfortable doing agency only. To be honest, I was surprised by the 4%. I was like, oh, I want to know what the story is with that.
Yeah,
How
me
did that
too.
come to be? But back to your point, I was surprised how high the in house was, and although I do know, I think it's the opposite I don't think it's the ones that have become too big. I think it's the ones that are really small.
Hmm.
That would be my guess, just based on the survey. I don't know that because I don't, we're not tracking the individual respondents.
And a
But
lot of big brands work with agencies. Like that's kind of
right.
the
Well, most
default.
of them, right. I mean, well, and the interesting thing is like the larger that we've gotten as a company, the more that we have hired basically outside marketing resources. We just hired an amazing Bob, who you were talking about, as a basically a consultant for us. And I've hired SEO consultants, and we currently have a fractional CFO on staff. And these have been some of the best moves we've ever made. So I get it as you get larger, like you can't be the expertise for everything and you need other sources. And I think that's a growth mindset, and I'm really excited about it. I love it actually doing it right now. But I think when you're small and you have less money, it can definitely feel, less resources. You can feel like I have to make this work myself. I have to get to a certain point, and that's okay. There is some truth to that. I mean, I know we're not a good fit for like a solo practitioner, but I would say I know that there's a couple, I think it's like Therapy Flow and I want to say mental health marketing. I think there's a couple agencies that are even specializing in that.
Hmm.
So my
Okay.
encouragement would be always ask an expert, always bring in what you can at the level that you're at. It's only going to help you grow faster and better, and make less mistakes hopefully along the way. It doesn't mean we're the right fit for everybody, but I think that's my guess is that it's the smaller ones.
Hmm.
Yeah.
We've been on the smaller side. I think we try to punch above our weight class, of course, in terms of the experience that we provide as a conference and all. But little tiny team at moments like the rugged individual, the Atlas kind of carrying the world. It feels like.
Yeah.
And then last year I hired a fractional business development person who took care of some of our sponsorship relationships, and just in January we onboarded a fractional social media manager. It was initially going to be a copywriter role, and it's turned into copywriting slash, email marketing design and taking over Instagram. And I can't tell you the sleep that I get at night now.
Isn't it great?
Big, I mean, stress aside, it's that I'm not doing it.
Right.
It's like I wasn't up last night. She was. And then I get this draft to like make a couple little tiny tweaks that are probably like mostly my ego saying I should still be involved. It's a beautiful thing as a small side, but yeah, but you do have to. So you can find the right fractional resources out there, or the right, maybe I don't know if Therapy Flow's total model, so at what their engagement level is, but you certainly should look at them and others for resources out there that can match up with your need at the right scale and scope.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, even a freelancer, I think, can be a place to start. And we didn't ask that specifically. So I'm learning a lot even from the
Yeah.
survey of, should we have asked that question? Are there people that are using multiple freelancers? There might be that going on, right? We specifically said agency. So I'm even learning, how to ask better questions to kind of understand the flow of where people are at in the process too. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
That
Yeah.
makes sense. And it's an exciting resource. I think one signal for me that was especially exciting was this morning we sent out our email marketing. It goes out every 2 weeks. So the timing was perfect to say, here's this research. And it was more than a 5% click through rate within the first 2 hours. And that was just today. So I'm excited to see what it does in kind of the first 24 hours, which seem to be the most important for our email marketing and probably most. But yeah, it was by far and away the most clicked link in our email. And it wasn't even in the lead or above the fold. So people got there, and for obvious reasons, they're downloading it. So that's great to see.
Yeah, we had great response too. So we sent it out to our group and we just started a LinkedIn campaign with it. And I really am hoping it helps industry wide. I think once we add the benchmarks to it as well,
Hmm.
where we have those stats of, what the average in the industry. So there's nobody that we could find that had specifically mental health benchmarks. If you go to WordStream or HubSpot or some of the other ones, they'll have average CPLs for like, let's say, addiction treatment centers or hospitals or, healthcare. but they don't have this specific niche. And I think it is nuanced. So that hopefully that'll help people know what to expect, what to budget, where they're at on if they're performing well, if they maybe have some opportunity.
That's a growing market, which is exciting.
Yep.
Okay, here's a curveball that I thought was fascinating.
Yeah.
Maybe you could speak to it. Respondents who say they have low confidence in evaluating and purchasing AI technology, and you were able to track the delta by the questions you asked. So in 2022, 29% had a low confidence, and in 2024, 21% said they have a low confidence in evaluating and purchasing AI technology. So that's going down. Kind of talk about what's going on there with sort of the confidence level and people's perception of AI tools as they shop for it.
Yeah. I mean, what we have heard, and this is more anecdotally, I mean, the statistics kind of speak for themselves, but what we have heard from people is they are experiencing such a level of overwhelm right now with all the technology that's out there. And I'll even say, as an agency ourselves that has gone just full in on AI, and I think we have 14 AI tools that we're now using as part of our company, and we train and speak about it. So like I would consider us, I would say, pretty in that world. The amount of time and effort and research that even just I personally have put into it has been about 30% of my job this past year. So what I'm hearing from people, and I'm trying not to lead them by my own experience, is people are telling me, Jen, this is taking me longer right now to integrate AI than just to keep doing what I'm doing. And so there's this I think increasing confidence in AI in general, but at least anecdotally, what I'm seeing is that it just feels like a big overwhelm for people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they don't know which ones to pick. Why? Is it vetted? Is it safe? A lot of people haven't even put their guardrails in place yet. So they haven't put in, like us for a company, one of our guardrails is we will not produce content that is AI written. So that's one of our in the stone kind, like pieces. But I'm talking to a lot of people that they have no policy. So they don't, so then if you think about it, if you don't have a policy, if you don't even know kind of what your structure is, how do you vet new tools and make a decision whether they're helpful or not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can empathize. I mean, you see these fun graphics on social media, like here's the 4,000 AI tools you need to know. And it's like literally hundreds and hundreds of little tiny, logos smashed all up against. And it's like, that is just overwhelming. That's going to freeze me. Like I'm going to be, analysis paralysis with something like that. And it is tricky. So I default to the same way I get my news, which is I'm not going to go watch the news. I'm going to go ask somebody like you. I'm going to ask somebody like Austin Armstrong or somebody tracking with AI who's
Right.
like, what are the one or two things? And I think I learned about Opus from you and him, and I thought, okay, that's one I'll check out. So it helps me filter the signal from the noise because there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of like Wild West AI noise right now. And you talked about the guardrails at the 2023 conference. That was a big point, which is like you've got to have your company policies and kind of standard operating procedures in place in order to use this new powerful tool responsibly.
Yeah. And it is, I mean, just be okay with the fact that, even if it's just you just commit to a little bit of time every single day, but be okay with the fact that there is just going to be a learning curve. And
Mm-hmm.
it's everybody's going through it. So, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I remember when November 2022, when I first started kind of getting into it, I had like a lot of fear around AI of just really realizing how much this was going to transform our world. None of us know exactly, but I think all of us at this point know it's massive, right? But then by January, February, I started realizing, well, we're all in the same boat. So it's like we're all experiencing this at the same time. So it's kind of what you do with it that matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the approach you take and how forward thinking you're going to be. So, but yeah, the stats, I'm not sure we asked the question deep enough to get into I know we didn't ask the question deep enough. I think we're actually thinking about doing a whole AI survey of doing that in June. So really going deep into Marketing AI Institute's done a great job with it, but going more into the agency side of things, like the world that we're in, because we need to get deeper into where people are really at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You and I both have read a book called 10x is easier than 2x, and they
Yes.
talk about that, where it's like there's this learning curve, where it's we've been driving horse and buggy for a while, and now we have to learn, how to drive a race car, which is kind of the shift that it
Right.
feels like. And it's like the Henry Ford quote. It's like, ask people what they want. They want faster horses. It's like, no, we have Ferraris now, because the amount of time we spend just typing, is wild. It's like more than 20 hours a week per adult in the US. And you
Yeah.
do that math on everybody, and then you watch how AI can put out content, and you need to be more careful, not less careful with the tool than you were before. We need to become stronger critical thinkers and editors and writers. We can't just opt out of the responsibility. But I mean, AI comes up so often in this podcast now recently, as I let the conversation go off the rails, as I don't feel as much like I need to curate the conversation. I can't tell you how often AI and some other interesting topics like blockchain and Web3 come up, but AI almost always seems to come up.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't, I'm more excited than nervous, but I think, like you said, it's the responsibility piece of just knowing that we own that part. But at this point, it's so far ahead of where most of us are that I feel like we almost have a responsibility to go as do as much with it as we can, so we can help create that conversation.
Hmm.
Like if we're not involved in it, and if we don't understand it well enough to have a say, then who does have the say? Who is going to
Yeah.
make those decisions? So
Hmm.
that's how I'm choosing to look at it. I want to have a say in where we end up with this.
Yeah,
I want to have a
absolutely.
voice in it. So
Yeah, I don't know where to land on this. I mean, back when it was simply computers, Peter Drucker said the computer is a moron because it doesn't make any decisions. You just put the input in, it gives you the
right,
output out. Now, I don't know if that applies anymore. If this is
no,
just a really incredible moron, or if this is like something way beyond that, something incredibly intelligent. And it feels like the latter to me, but I'm not well versed in all the nuances of it. But fascinating topic to keep track of. So I'll look for it. If we can support on that June AI research in any capacity, let me know. I'd love to be a part of that too.
yeah, I think that'd be great info going into the conference, even of like
Hmm.
just where are people at, and that'd be really good. So
Yeah.
well, yeah, this is a great opportunity. I'm, looking back on it now, I guess this is like every entrepreneur. I always see 10 areas for improvement of what we could have done better on the questions, but I do think we have a good foundation. There were some great takeaways from it. And now we know how to ask even deeper, better questions so we can get even more granular in the information moving forward.
Yeah. Well, as someone with a tremendous amount of ethics that you and Adrian work from, one last point on that 10X book, which you reminded me of, it's like
Yeah, love
the
it.
horizons are there for inspiration, but don't try to chase the horizon, but look backward. And we didn't have this report last year. So kudos to you for creating something net new. I think it's tremendously valuable. Tell people where and how to find it easily, and then how to follow you all to stay in touch as you kind of suss out some more insights out of this going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. If you just go to our website, under our resources page is the State of Mental Health Marketing download. So you just click on that under resources and put in your email, your name, and it will just download it instantly for you. So you don't have to run through any major hoops. We wanted to make it really easy for people. If you join our email list or you become a part of that, any of that information, you'll start getting our benchmarks and all of that information. We're going to continue publishing at this cadence and try to provide as much data as we can for the industry.
Awesome. Awesome. And we'll put those links in the show notes too. Jennifer, it's always fun to talk to you, always a delight. I always learn things. So thanks for doing this today. I really appreciate it.
I had a great time. Thanks.
All right. Take care.